definition of Anaconda is done and we've understood what exactly is Anaconda Navigator and also Anaconda Prompt. Now, what is this Jupyter Notebook? So as it is stated over here, Jupyter Notebook is basically a browser-based interpreter that allows us to interactively work with Python. So this is just a screenshot. So let's head on to actual Jupyter Notebook and start working with it. So we have to create a new notebook first. So to create a new notebook, we have this new tab. I'll just click on this new and I want to work with a new Python 3 file. So I'll click on Python 3. Now I will go ahead and give the notebook a name. So I will name this as, let's say, let me keep P to be capital over here. So I will name this as Python for non-programmers. So I have successfully given this a name. Now let's look at all of these tabs over here. So let me click on File. So if you want to create another new notebook, click on this, click on Python 3. So you have a new notebook over here. So similarly, let's say if I have to open a new file which is present in my system, you click on Open. Then you can save this file, rename this file, you can save in Checkpoint. If you want to save this, so you have all of these options over here. So normally we save these Jupyter notebooks as .ipynb files. So I'll just click on this. And as you see over here, the download has started. Now let me go to the edit. So this part, what you see, this is actually known as a cell. So with the help of this edit tab, you can cut cell, copy, paste, delete, split, and merge. So you've got all of these different operations over here. Then you got the view tab, right? So you've got these toggle options. You can toggle the header, you can toggle the toolbar. And then you've got inserts. You can either insert a cell above it or you can either insert a cell below this, right? It's as simple as that. Right, so if you want to run a cell, then you have all of these options. And then we've got something known as a kernel. So you can consider the kernel to be basically the executor of the program. So you write your code over here, but the question is, how will the code be executed? So this is where the kernel comes in. This is what will execute your program. Right, so these are the different operations which you've got over here, right? So also if you need any help, then you got all of these. Now, let's say instead of clicking on all of these tabs, if you wanted to work with shortcuts, so just click on this keyboard shortcuts and you got all of these different keyboard shortcuts, right? So just look at these keyboard shortcuts and you can use them. So let's go ahead and write our first Python program. Now, let's say I like the movie 300 very much and I absolutely love this dialogue. This is Sparta. So I'll just type in that. So I'll type in print. And then I'll type in this is Sparta. Now I'll click on run. So as you see, we have successfully executed our first line of Python code. So guys, you're on your way to hacking NASA systems. Isn't it just amazing, right? So you've just taken the first step to learn Python. Now there's a lot to learn. So we'll be learning all of them in a step-by-step approach. So get your seatbelts ready. I've written our first line of code. Now, again, the question is, how do we store our data? Well, you already know the answer. We would need something known as variables. So we've got all of these different names of people over here. So we've got John, Sam, and Matt. And if you have to store this data somewhere, you'd have to store it in a variable. So let's go ahead and work with variables in Python. Now, let's say I'll name this variable as employee name. So I'll just type in employee name over here and I will give the name of the employee as John. Now I'll print out this variable employee name. So as you see, I have this value John and I have stored this value inside this variable employee name and I get the result John. Now, as I've already told you guys, this variable is a temporary storage space. So it will not hold the same value every time. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and I will change the value which is present inside this variable. So employee name, and this time I will store the value Sam inside this. So let me just type in Sam and then I'll print out this variable again. So I'll type in employee name, right? So this time this employee name variable has the value Sam inside it. Now similarly, I'll go ahead and change the value which is present inside it. So John, Sam, and our third employee is Matt. So let me just go ahead and print out this as well. So employee name. So as you see over here, I have changed the value which is present in this variable again. So this is how you can work with variables. Now this is the reason Python is known as a dynamically typed programming language. So you don't have to initialize your variables with a specific data type. So whatever data type the value has, the same data type will be associated with the variable as well. Now you again must be confused what exactly is this data type. So let's understand that. So as I already told you, every variable is associated with a data type. So you've got different types of data. You've got character data, you've got int data, boolean and string. So let's start with integer data. So integer data is basically your integer values. So you can have -1, -100, 500, 1000 and so on, right? So this is your integer data. And then you can have floating point data. So floating point data is basically numbers which are decimal points. So 3.14, 15.97, -3.879, all of these are floating point numbers. And then you got Boolean values. So Boolean values are basically true and false values. And then finally we've got string type of data, right? So Sam and Matt. So wherever you have characters and it is enclosed in single quotes or double quotes or triple quotes, that is your string type of data. Now again, let's go to Jupyter Notebook and work with these different types of data. So I'll start off by creating a integer type data. So I'll name the variable as A1 and inside this, I'll store the value 100 and let me print out A1. So as you see, 100 is stored in A1. Now let me check the type of this variable. So I have this type function. Inside this, I will give in the name of the variable which is A1. I'll click on run. So as you see, A1 is of integer type. Now I'll go ahead and change the value inside A1. So this time I will store in 3.14. Now I'll again check the type of A1. So type of A1, let me type in A1 over here. Right, so as you see, now since I've stored 3.14 inside the variable A1, the type has changed from integer to float. Now I'll go ahead and store a boolean value inside this. So A1, I'll store the value true inside this. Let me print out A1 over here. Right, so true was stored inside A1. Now let me check the type of this. So type of A1. So as you see, this is of type boolean. Now I will go ahead and store a string type into this. So let me again type A1 and the value which I'll be storing inside this would be actually string. So I'll store Sparta inside this. Let me just print out A1 over here. Right, so I've stored Sparta. Now let me check the type of it. So type of A1. And as you see, this is of type string. So we've got one more data type which is actually known as complex. So complex numbers have a real part and an imaginary part. So when you were in high school, you would have worked with numbers such as 4 plus 5i or 10 minus 5i, right? So over here, the left side of the term is actually the real part. So in 5 plus 10i, 5 would be a real part. And the 10i, so whatever is associated with the I part of it, the 10, that is your imaginary part. So this is a complex number which would have both the real part and the imaginary part associated with it. Now in Python programming language, to work with these complex numbers, so the I is actually represented with J. So now what I'll do is I'll store a number inside this. So I'll name that complex number to be 3 plus 5j. Now let me print out A1. Right, so this is 3 plus 5j. Now let me check the type of this. Type of A1. So as you see, this is a complex number.